Hello, everybody. My name is Lush Eisner, and welcome to the Canadian Money Talk, the channel about Canadian investing and personal finance. Please like and subscribe. I record 2 videos per week, so make sure you ring the notification bell to get notified each time one comes out. The world is transitioning to clean, cleaner, and renewable energies. In this video, I'd like to give you some information on the state of the transition and its issues, especially in the low and middle income countries. Secondly, I'll briefly cover the energy crisis and the cost to the consumer we experienced in the rich countries. In part 3, we'll cross-reference this to how we are doing in achieving sustainable energy goals so as to slow and stop climate change. And finally, in part 4, we'll look at the predicted peak oil demand, which is important as the underlying theme for the transition to clean energy from fossil fuels. Number 1, transition to clean energy. In a World Bank study, the world is on the cusp of a monumental transition to clean energies that will fundamentally change our lives for the better. However, barriers are paralyzing the developing world's access to renewables because they cannot afford high upfront costs nor obtain enough low-cost financing. Low and middle income countries currently receive only 1/5 of the global energy investment, despite accounting for 2/3 of the global population. Without the means to fund an energy transition, developing countries often pay more for electricity, cannot access clean energy projects, and are locked into fossil fuel projects with high and volatile variable costs, a triple penalty for energy transition. In essence, the poverty trap is becoming an energy trap that is becoming a climate trap. While renewables such as solar and wind provide the least expensive electricity, the upfront costs for clean energy infrastructure are considerable. Installing enough renewable energy capacity to provide the same output as fossil fuel-based generation in developing countries can cost 2 or 3 times more. Financing this initial cost can raise the price tag of decarbonizing power systems by over 30% due to high cost of capital in poor countries. With an estimated $1 trillion a year in energy investments needed throughout the developing world to meet climate goals, effectively mobilizing private capital is essential. The amount of money allocated by governments to support clean energy investments since 2020 has risen to a 1.34 trillion US, according to the latest International Energy Agency update. Yet only 10% of the spending has come in the last 6 months, one of the slowest periods for the new allocations since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. The IEA report shows that this slowdown in government spending may be short-lived, however, as a number of additional policy packages are being considered in Australia, Brazil, Canada, the European Union, and Japan. Notably, direct incentives for manufacturers aimed at bolstering domestic manufacturing of clean energy technologies now total around US 90 billion. Part 2, the energy crisis. At the same time, governments around the world have responded rapidly to the global energy crisis that has hit consumers hard, and they have increased spending on managing the immediate energy price shocks. Since the start of the global energy crisis in early 2022, governments have allocated 900 billion US to short-term consumer affordability measures in addition to pre-existing support programs and subsidies. In rich countries, money for energy subsidies is apparently available. Part 3, the road to sustainable energy goals. To no one's surprise, the world is falling behind on sustainable energy goals. Current efforts are not enough to achieve the global goal of ensuring all citizens have access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy by 2030, according to a new report IEA released last week with other international organizations. This year marks the midway point towards achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, including SDG 7, which includes the targets of achieving universal access to electricity and clean cooking, doubling historic levels of energy efficiency improvements, and substantially increasing the share of renewables in the global energy mix. but the 2023 edition of an SDG report warns that the world is falling behind. Billions of people worldwide still lack access to electricity and clean cooking solutions, with global economic difficulties, including mounting debt and high energy prices, increasing the challenges for reaching SDG 7 by 2030. But IEA analysis shows that achieving universal access to electricity and clean cooking by the end of this decade would require investment of 45 billion a year, an amount well within the means of the international community. However, as per my earlier point, funding for low and middle income countries for renewable electricity investment has been lacking. And finally, number 4, peak oil demand. Expect global oil demand to peak this decade as the world more rapidly adopts electric vehicles and other technologies, the International Energy Agency says. Quote, the shift to a clean energy economy is picking up pace, with a peak in global oil demand in sight before the end of this decade as electric vehicles, energy efficiency, and other technologies advance, end quote, said IEA Executive Director Fatih Birol. In a report issued Wednesday, the IEA said annual demand growth will slow dramatically from 2.4 million barrels per day this year to 400 barrels a day in 2028. China's demand, which was pent up due to COVID shutdowns, will slow down more quickly, the agency projected. The nation, one of the 2 most populous on Earth alongside India, is experiencing a rapid expansion of its EV market. The peak oil demand, to be fair, has always been 10 years out, ever since I have been reading International Energy Agency reports starting a decade ago. But it is important for us as the underlying theme for the transition to clean energy from fossil fuels. The transition seems very slow because money is only available in rich countries and as temporary short-term consumer affordability subsidies to get politicians reelected, if I may turn pessimistic and cynical at the very end. If you have any requests on what you'd like me to cover in future videos, please put that in the comment section. If you'd like to get in touch, please reach out on any of these social media channels, and may you have a profitable day.